I was diagnosed in 1989 with ADHD and then language processing disorder. Through the depression, anxiety, and just looking for things to make myself feel more normal, I noticed that I would gorge on food. I didn't realize that body dysmorphia is what it was until much later, because that's not really something we talk about back then, or even for men now. You had an eating disorder, you're a binge eater, you must have been really fat. No, quite the opposite. My parents actually sat me down, had an intervention thinking I was anorexic. My father brought me up with this sense of altruism. We were always going to soup kitchens and doing all that type of work. I don't care that somebody else may be going through something quote unquote worse. We each have to take our own journey. We each have our value and we deserve to feel what we're feeling. So my advice is please do not.
Have you ever felt the world wasn't built for you? Like you were doing everything right and still something just felt off? Like you were fighting harder than everyone else just to keep up and nobody around you even noticed? My guest today doesn't just talk about it, he's built a life around it. Dan Roth is a TEDx speaker, an advocate, an author, and a dad to two twin girls who are both autistic. He's walked into the studio ready to go there, and we definitely went there. Aloha, I'm Thomas, a plane crash and burn survivor, and I started this podcast because I know the feeling all too well. I wanted to create a space where people who've been through it or who are currently going through it can find ways to overcome their own adversity and learn how to move forward, heal, and grow. If that sounds like something you need in your life, please consider hitting like, subscribe, and share this episode. You're exactly in the right place. Most people don't want to talk about the hard stuff. Neurodivergency, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and what it actually means to raise a child in a world that doesn't fully understand them yet. What came out of this conversation is some of the most real and most powerful insight that we've had on the podcast yet. So please enjoy this episode and the wisdom of Dan Roth. Dan, thank you so much for being here. You've had such an impressive career, not just because of what you've been able to achieve, but all that you've had to overcome. And, when I saw you with our friend Rena and you guys were just doing that thing in the car, just chit-chatting, I was like, man, this is somebody who has seen the dark side of things and has been able to move through it and is contributing and is giving back to people. And it's just something I admire. It's something that I want to do personally, and I see it in you. So thank you so much for your time and thank you for being here.
And thank you, Thomas. Rena's amazing.
She is.
And what you didn't see is like right after that, when you reached out, she's like, Thomas doesn't reach out. You better talk to Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Man, I hope that's not their reputation. I try to reach out. It's just,
no, you have to be selective, and that's okay. And I don't expect anything, and I'm really bad at taking compliments. So anything positive you say, like if I roll it off,
me too. And I'm going to keep giving it to you because I'm bad at it too. So
and I'm going to give it to you. But here's the thing. It's not what gone through, it's what going through. I think a lot of people have this idea that as we encounter difficulties that they immediately go away. And that's not the case. I mean, I've been dealing with eating disorder and body dysmorphia and anxiety and depression since I was 8 or 9 years old. When we go through traumatic events, they last with us our entire lives. Right. So maybe we overcome hurdles and hills, but it never goes away. It seems like there's just some of us that were meant to be examples for what you can do through sheer perseverance and will.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a process, right? I so agree with you. People see me now and it's been almost 7 years. It'll be 7 years in September. And it's like, oh man, you're great. You're healed. You're better. But they don't see, all the surgeries or like little procedures I still have to do. They don't see all the therapy I'm still going through. They don't see the mornings when I wake up and, I have to take my medication and all that. And it's like, I'm so happy and proud of where I'm at now. But yes, I definitely feel like I'm still moving through. And I'm always going to be kind of reminded, for me, it's just this one moment, right? That completely shifted everything for me and, broke my brain and emotionally just changed my life. But, I do think you can still heal and move forward from that. And yes, I think we can still acknowledge what we went through while still also realizing that you can heal to some degree, you can still grow. And I see that from you and what you've had to deal with. And so I want to take it back. You talked about the eating disorder and body dysmorphia, and that's so hard. And I feel for you. When did you know that it was an issue for you?
To start off, like I was diagnosed in 1989. I'm 41 years old with ADHD and then language processing disorder. And the reason I bring that up in correlation to it is because those that are neurodiverse have a tendency to gravitate towards food as a serotonin boost. And I'm not a doctor, so nobody take
Yeah,
like
this is
that.
not medical
Yeah,
advice.
this is not
This
medical
is
advice.
your experience.
So through the depression, anxiety, and just looking for things to make myself feel more normal, I noticed that I would gorge on food. Like I would just have massive amounts of stuff that was going home. I was like looking around,
Right.
grabbing everything from the cabinet and bringing it upstairs. And I would go into my bathroom, into my shower, sit down, like locked everything. I didn't want anybody to see me doing it. And I would just gorge myself.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that body dysmorphia is what it was until much later, because that's not really something we talk about back then, or
Right.
even for men now.
That's what I was going to say, though. I've heard it brought up with women, but it doesn't get talked about a lot with men.
And there are different iterations when it does get talked about. So when I was researching for the TEDx, I really got involved in looking at, well, what are the differences? And if you look at how society portrays what we're supposed to be,
Yeah.
it really makes sense. So for men, it's masculinity, it's jawline, it's muscles, that kind of
Abs.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Biceps.
For women, it's more overall stomach size, breasts, hips, all these different features. And then when we take into account the cultural differences in how we're brought up, those only exacerbate these comparative things. So I initially thought my body dysmorphia was just OCD. I didn't think it was body dysmorphia until much later. I just knew I hated looking in the mirror. And mind you, everybody thinks, well, you had an eating disorder, you're a binge eater, you must have been really fat. No, quite the opposite. My parents actually sat me down, had an intervention thinking I was anorexic because I couldn't gain an ounce of weight.
Wow.
So, and I was in the gym all the time. Like growing up, my physicality and being in the gym, how I looked was the only thing I sort of hung my hat on. And I used that to try to gain friendship, to try to gain popularity, just because I didn't believe that anybody would see me, appreciate me.
Yeah, maybe
for
love
who I
you
am.
for anything
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Yeah. Man, I can relate to that a lot. And yeah, I was very fortunate. I've made this terrible joke so many times, but I'll say it again. It's like, I didn't think I was Brad Pitt, but I definitely didn't think I was bad looking. And then, to your point, I was working out like 5 days a week. I was in the gym 3 days a week. I was doing jujitsu. I was running, almost 10 miles a week. And it was like, I was like, man, I'm in great shape. And then to go from that overnight to somebody who couldn't walk, talk, breathe, and then my whole body was burned and, it was bandaged and everything. And it was like, what? My whole self-image, I think that was another element that just got completely destroyed. And it really did make me think, who am I without the looks? And I had to experience this at 31, but you were experiencing this at like what age?
5, 6.
Man, that
Like
must
this
been
was
tough.
early. And by the way, I do want to bring something up because I don't necessarily know that I've heard you talk about this. And I'm going to be very brutally honest.
Okay.
So I am someone that constantly looks to decolonize how we approach and how we view things. When I came in here, as I was approaching, I'm like, okay, I know Thomas lost some body parts. I know, like, am I going to double back?
Right.
Because intuitively, like, you don't want to stare, you don't want to be disrespectful, but the reality of it is that this is what happens. I'm sure you've noticed it with other guests. Now,
Yeah.
to your credit, the person that you are, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with you, but the person that you are, I immediately felt comfortable. I didn't
thanks,
I don't believe, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that I doubled back. But it's something that anytime we encounter something that may be different than what we're accustomed to, there is that momentary pause of how are we going to react when this happens?
Sure, sure. Totally thinking about, yeah, how am I gonna react to them? I totally get that. I appreciate it. You can double back as long as it's in a good way, you know?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to be looking at anything underneath your pants because apparently it's not impressive. But
at least when at least not after being in a plane crash. So yeah.
Well, I have to ask.
Yeah.
Was your wife one of the nurses?
No. Thank goodness she was not. I mean, eventually after I got home from the hospital, she amazingly did take care of me, change bandages and all that stuff, and still loves me. And I think is still attracted to me, all things considered. But man, yeah, I just love that because I think as men too, I don't think we really talk a lot about our self-image, right? To your point, it's like, you know, we see on the cover of Men's Health, you have your Chris Hemsworth and your Chris Evans and your Chris Pratts, all the Chris's, right? But
maybe not Chris Pratt anymore.
Maybe.
He's been kicked out of the circle.
Right. But, you know, those are the stereotypical body types and all that you see on those covers. And I think it's it shouldn't be. I mean, maybe that's the wrong word, but it's like, seems like a taboo topic for men. It's not something I talk about with my friends normally. And it's like, I would in high school, I guess, with like guys I was going to the gym with, and it's like, oh, look, you know, I'm getting buff and stuff. But I think it is a taboo topic that maybe shouldn't be because we do think about it, to your point. It's instinctual. We instantly notice something when somebody has some type of phenotypical or outward appearance that's different. And I catch people sometimes looking at my hand or my face. But you know, the way I look at it is like, it's not their fault. I know something's different. You know, there's noticeable difference in hands or scars and all that. And that's okay. I don't judge people, or at least I try not to. I try not to judge people for that. I get that things are different. Would I also look if I saw somebody who I didn't quite understand what happened to them? You know, and I think that's okay. As long as you're doing it from a place of curiosity and not of judgment, I think it's okay. I don't know. What's your take on it?
I agree. And I always go back to this. I think it's a large portion plays a role in how we bring up our kids and how we set the example for, hey, if you see something different, it's okay to like double back and check, but do it from a place of love and curiosity. But if we look at it historically, like look at who was really in the circus. We had anybody that was different was portrayed as a unique thing to be seen. And
or the word freak.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we have society tell us that we have to be a certain way and anything different is wrong, then that's where it really comes into play. And, you know, I sort of overly talk about how we have this history of suppression and oppression in the United States, and it wasn't created evenly. But really, when you look at it, like, what exactly are we seeing? And not that I didn't watch this, but if you look at the new documentary on America's Next Top Model, it talks a lot about that, how all these different things.
Watched that.
Yeah, so did mine. That's the only reason it's on. Like,
I haven't seen it yet, but I know it's being talked about.
All of these things happen. And then you get back to this idea of like men as we're younger, like locker room talk was real. It was toxic. I mean, I was a football player, a hockey player. I did track and field. I hated being in there because there was this constant comparison, and the people that often quote unquote looked the best, and I can say I was in really good shape for a time, but often they were the most disgusting. Yeah, they really were.
Like personality wise.
Personality wise, but like there were a lot of them would just like belch and fart anywhere, and I'm like, like seriously, dude. Like it goes back to, if you ever seen the movie Idiocracy, like it goes back to like that example of okay, I have to stop because I'm at the risk of offending people if I
But this was your experience, right?
It was.
And I guess what I'm saying. And you're right. And not all locker rooms are created equal.
No.
Not all guys are created equal. And I guess where my mind is going with you is, how does this start shifting in you to push against the norm, to also figure out like what is actually healthy, what is good for society? Where does this start coming into play in your life?
41 years old, and I've been on hundreds of podcasts. We've skirted around that. I don't think I've ever been asked that. And that goes to your intuition. I appreciate that. Mm. I know the big marker, which was when my kids were born. And I'm happy to discuss that. That's a hard story. But even before that, my father brought me up with this sense of altruism. And he came from nothing. His father left when he was 4. His mom worked 4 jobs. Like he came from nothing. So we were always going to soup kitchens and doing all that type of work. But at that point, like, you just know that you're sort of going along with your parent. But that definitely ingrained in me. The fact that my mother was a strong, independent woman, like I always matriculated to that strong, independent woman. So I think that played a huge role in that. But it didn't really occur to me. I'll try to make the story quick. And I know we touched on it prior. So my wife had a horrible pregnancy. For those that are listening, just to get this out of the way, I have twins. We didn't have twins right on the side of our family. So my wife had hyperemesis to start. So that's when you get morning sickness over and over for all 9 months. And then she had gestational diabetes.
That just sounds so rough.
It was horrible. And then, so what she would do is 2 to 3 times a week, we would go to the infusion center, which is the same place actually that they go to get chemo.
Oh, wow.
And she would get what's called a banana bag, and it's to replenish her fluids because she was getting sick so much. So very, very, very rough pregnancy. So then August 20th, 2019, we're supposed to have a C-section 11:30 in the morning. My wife's water breaks at 11:30 p.m. on the 20th. My kids were 12 hours early. So they had the right time, wrong day. So what winds up happening is we go in, and I remember I wasn't emotional at all. In fact, I was cracking jokes during the C-section with everybody, and that was great.
That aligns with what we were talking about earlier.
I'm very much cracking jokes and having a good time, and then we get led into the recovery room, and all of a sudden, I see these doctors rushing to my wife, Jen, and I don't know what's going on. Nobody's telling me anything. They rush her into emergency surgery. Now,
that's scary.
My wife is my hero. I did not move to San Diego as a fully formed adult. I was needy and didn't know how to do things that I should. All I knew is I had this woman that believed in me and was sticking by me. And through sheer will, I became a better man because of her. So here's my everything. And for 3 hours, I sat there, and it was me and my twins, and I broke down. And in those moments, I tell this story a lot, but it's never easy to talk about. In those moments, I had to think, are my kids growing up in an environment where they could be anything that they want?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. And I had to think about, what would it be like if I had to raise these girls as a single father?
Right.
And when you talk about the turning point, when I realized that the answers to those questions were that they couldn't be anything, and people sometimes think that I'm saying this for the sake of soundbite, I'm not. I made a promise to them. I made a promise to God. I made a promise to myself that I would do everything I could for every waking hour that I have. And before my girls, when I would get faced with tough situations, I would typically run. I would hide. I would cower. Like, when I talk about not being a full human being, like from a neurodivergent standpoint, it was just easier for me to shriek from challenges than to face. And overnight, it became a situation that my resolve was so I shocked myself
Mm.
with my resolve. And thankfully, so to sort of paint this picture, so 3 hours later, my wife comes back. I'm broken down to tears. She looks up at me, and this goes back to what you said when you were gone in. She goes, "Why are you crying? I'm the one that just got out of surgery." So I mean,
Yeah.
that's my wife.
Right.
So we go in, and then I start doing things and start getting involved. But then my daughter Brooklyn starts exhibiting autistic tendencies, and we get her evaluated, and we get
Mhm.
Haley evaluated. So every step of the way, what starts as just simple advocacy for our children now moves into advocacies for special education. And that
Right.
was my biggest fear having kids. I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through. So as
Right.
I'm sitting here and looking at all these challenges that we encounter, well, we already had established between my wife and I that we wanted to raise our kids with a different value system, knowledge
Mhm.
and tolerance of all religions. We wanted
Mm.
to break traditional gender roles and gender norms.
Wow.
We wanted it to be a true partnership. So we already had that, but now we're adding things in with special education. And
Yeah.
I start getting involved in their school. And we created an initiative to help students with physical and
Yeah.
handicaps.
Which
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
touch on because I think, yeah, your work with the Manning Project is incredible. I do want to talk about it, but I'm curious, as you're talking about this, do you think that well of renewed resolve or an extra level, so to speak, was that already in you or was it unlocked at that moment when they're rushing your wife into the ER?
I don't know.
Mm.
Wherever it came from, whether it's God, whether it's my grandmother in heaven, whether wherever it came from showed up. Now, do I know that I had the upbringing to set the stage and the infrastructure for that resolve?
Mhm.
Hell yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You know, I told you I had strong, powerful women. I've had sponsors. And when I say sponsor, I mean role models that have shaped me, whether it's from anti-racism, whether it's from advocacy, or just as a human being.
Mhm.
So I know that I had the infrastructure, but there's a difference between having the infrastructure and then understanding how to use it.
Yeah, how to leverage it and also like, how does your skills align with that? How are you best? Yeah, that's like a completely different thing, but it is something I think about a lot, right? Because we can have all these opportunities in the world, also like in ways that are challenging, right? Like there's different challenges in our life, and that could be seen as an opportunity to do better, to try to live your life in a new way that not only helps you, but also helps other people, helps your family. But it's, are you going to then act in a way that's going to allow you to use that infrastructure and those opportunities?
And that's the hard part, because as all this is happening, at first I wound up getting, I told you this, I got the job at Amazon through what I do, and I became a DEI leader for one of the divisions. But then in 2023, I get laid off, and here I am as this person that's a strategic people operations specialist. But really, what that means is that I create change in meaningful ways for the people and the businesses.
Love it.
Well, so for 3 years, like right now, I'm sitting here unemployed, trying to build up,
Mm.
and I'm still doing all this
Yeah.
while I'm struggling, while I had to sell most of my studio stuff just to
Mm.
pay bills, and you do what you have to. Like, I'm still struggling, and that's an important
Mm.
thing for me to acknowledge, because people could be listening to this thing and, okay, well, this guy's got all this together. Well, no, you can have a lot of positives, but still be in the grind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm very much in the grind, but through the darkest of tunnels, there's always got to be some light. And if it wasn't
Mhm.
for the work that I do, if it wasn't for the speaking up, if it wasn't for the episodes like this, or with Rena, or
Yeah.
the TEDx, I probably would have been lost.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know a lot about that lost feeling. For me, it was like, it was a job that was also tied into my self-efficacy, to my who I was, my purpose, my identity, right? It was like Thomas Craig, commercial pilot, soon to be commercial airline pilot, right? Like that. And then that's how I kind of drove myself, because up until the plane crash, the hardest thing I'd ever done was go to flight school. You know, I like changed my job. I got rid of I left a six-figure job, and everyone's like, man, you're crazy. Like, why would you do that? You know, and it's like, because it just didn't, the person I wanted to be in life, it wasn't aligning there. And the way I thought I was going to best serve the world was by being a pilot and getting people to and from places that they needed to be, and with family and to cool events, or maybe it's packages or whatever, right? It was like, this is how I'm going to serve the world. And yes, there's going to be a cool title and a nice paycheck and all that with it. But then the accident happened. And then, you know, it was the healing, and then years went by, and it's like, this isn't going to happen for you anymore. That's not a route you can go down. And it was so hard to really figure out, like, who am I if I'm not doing this stuff? And I want to say thank you so much for sharing what you did, because I appreciate you being vulnerable, and it is hard, and you're going through something hard, but it's like, I also feel from you that you talked about, like, there's the job and then there's the work. And you talked about the work that you're doing is also sustaining you, and it seems like emotionally, right? Because you're giving back in other ways. And like, I think this is a perfect time to jump into your advocacy, but also with the Manny Project. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind talking about that and how that is kind of building up the other areas where, you know, the job that pays the bills isn't there right now.
Yeah. And I appreciate you bringing that up. One thing I'll say is, it surprises me that in this advanced age that you still don't have the ability to go back to piloting, even with your challenges.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of,
I can never say never, but I mean, to
would you want to?
I think I'm just, one, my family wouldn't want me to.
Yeah.
Two, I think I'm still really afraid about being in little planes.
Okay.
I think I was about 500 hours. You need 1,500 hours to get to an airline. And I'll be honest, yeah, I'm just still kind of terrified in being those little planes. So that would be a massive obstacle for me to overcome. Not saying I couldn't do it, but it would be very tough. And now, as I sit with you today, I'm on a different path.
Yeah.
You know, I want people to feel like they can overcome anything. I want to show people that, you know, that there is some level of healing through any traumatic event, you know, and that you have to take a little bit of ownership in it. You have to stop feeling, for me, like a victim. You have to start realizing not everything's in your control, but there are certain things that are, and you have to focus like hell on doing the things that you can control. And I do believe if you work through that, you're going to end up in a better place than you were when you were at your darkest moment. And it's so far rang true for me. And I'm just very happy with the journey I'm on right now.
And I love that for you, because I see the person that you are. And
thanks, man.
you know, sometimes it takes something drastic. And in both of our cases, it was something drastic to see where it meant to be. And before I get into the Manny Project, and I'm going to hijack this for a second, I want to acknowledge your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Because, and I don't remember her name, or if you even told me.
Yeah. Christina.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Christina, if you're watching this, when you're watching this,
she doesn't watch these episodes.
Okay.
No,
I just want to give you your kudos, because as a husband of a woman that is my hero, that supported me, I know what it's like. I can try, even though I'm not in your shoes, to empathize with how much you've gone through and how much support. And yes, I understand that you probably would say it's not about you, but in some reference, we have to pay the respect to the ones that have stood by us.
Absolutely.
So you are a hero as well, Christina. And I just want to acknowledge that.
I love that. Thank you. That's so kind. And I completely agree with you. Yeah. We were talking about it earlier. I can't even remember if this was like while we were recording or if this was pre, but you know, it's like, no man is an island. And I know that so well now. It's like, I used to feel like, as I was going through flight school and even sales profession, everything, it was like, I got to make this happen. If I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And while I do feel like we have to put effort and action into things, there are moments where people aren't going to do something for you. You cannot get to where you want to be by yourself. it takes some kind of support. It takes some people who believe in you, who love you. And even when you're not bringing home the bacon, or you're not you're not just commanding everything. There's somebody behind you who still says like, yeah, but you can do it. Even whether they're saying it directly with their words or indirectly with their actions, it's like somebody is championing you. And yes, I appreciate you so much for recognizing that, because your wife is a superstar too. Whether the tough pregnancy she's gone through, to, I don't think of myself as being totally neurodivergent, but I just found out this year alone that I'm diagnosed with ADHD. I had no idea, that this was something like all the little idiosyncrasies and the things I'm rehearsing at home in the mirror, and why I have to listen to the same song 150 times after I learn about it. I did not know that was ADHD. I just thought I was somebody who was obsessed about things. And the fact that my wife and your wife and other people's wives who support them through these things is like, they deserve so much credit. Yeah. And I also credit all the people in the hospital and people I get to work with here at Voice and Video, and just people in my life too. It's just like, I've been so blessed with amazing support.
Oh, 100%. And, I got to credit my mother as well. But yeah, so you brought up the Manny Project. And I'm not trying to like shift gears.
No, let's talk about it. I would love to know more about it.
So here's what happened. Last year, Brooklyn started going to a new school for extensive. She's in extensive support, which for those that aren't familiar with what extensive support is when you have children that need special assistance. So you're going to have a better teacher to student ratio. And it's just to create an environment for safety and for otherwise. Mm-hmm. So she starts going there, and I've always been a believer that you use your network for good. So when she started going to school, I was talking with their principal. I said, in passing, hey, if you need anything, let me know. I have a large network. And she said, well, there's this student that needs an adaptive swing. Mm-hmm. An adaptive swing is a swing that allows children with physical and mental handicaps to safely swing and play with their fellow students. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's not just them, it encourages participation. So a lot of the kids will go and push the kids on the swing. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. So she says this, I doubt she thought anything of it. I go online to my network, I say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do.
Right.
3 days later, $1,500. We identified the best possible adaptive swing that we could with safety measures, and we order it and get it installed. Now,
wait, in 3 days?
In 3 days, it was $1,500. Not the first time I've done something like that. Like, I'm not a fundraiser by nature, and I don't talk about this a lot. If there's a cause that needs it, mm-hmm. I've raised $15,000 for a career accelerator classroom in Nigeria. Wow. I've had the great opportunity to do a lot of work with nonprofits.
But it's amazing to go from like 3 days to finding out it needed to be there to like then order it installed.
This is the superpower of ADHD.
Okay. Yeah.
So this particular young man, he was born with cerebral palsy. He actually wasn't supposed to live. Mm. His parents were sent home with him in hospice. These are two veterans. His name's Manny. Great kid. I've had the honor of having him in class with my daughter for the last 2 years. So we get the swing, and I start getting involved with the advisory committee on special education for our district.
Yeah.
I currently serve as the co-chair. I was unanimously voted last year, mm-hmm. Which was a surprise to me because I had no intention. So as I'm getting involved in the district, and this is where the work that I did at Amazon really comes into play. I understand how to strategically operate and make things work within a multifunctional dynamic.
Large organization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And schools are no joke. Mm-hmm. So I started working and said, well, if we do this, and understanding that MAGA has cut the budget for special education, how can we become one of the most inclusive districts in the country? And again, I say for those listening, we're sitting here in San Diego. This is a San Diego project, and I'll give you ways to get involved later on. But so why don't we do that? And the Manny Project was born, and the goal was we have 36,000 students in Poway Unified. We have 26 elementary schools. Let's fundraise and get adaptive swings in every single one as part of phase 1. Phase 2 is going to be toilet seat risers, which are incredibly important for kids with special needs.
Wow.
Let's get sensory bags in all the classrooms in all the schools throughout the district. And let's take the financial burden away from the teachers, because the teachers do not get paid nearly enough.
Right.
And then they spend a tremendous amount out of pocket. That's not fair to them.
No, yeah, because it's a public service, and you're right. I do believe teachers definitely don't get paid enough, and then to take the little money they have and then try to spend it on the classroom is just an added burden. And but I just think it's amazing, that it's to this place of giving. I guess what I'm wondering now is like where we started in this conversation, right? With the things you experienced when you were younger, the things you had to overcome, the eating disorder and all this stuff. Where and how would you draw a line from that to this initiative? Like, how did you going through those experiences younger now drive you here to helping kids with disabilities? I mean, I guess it seems like it's an easy connection, but it just, I want to hear from you.
It is, and it's not. And by the way, and I'll send you this once we get it. We actually are we got a $10,000 grant I told you about. Wow. That's good. So 13 swings are in the process of being purchased, which will complete 70% of the first phase. Wow. We just selected the schools yesterday. We're going to be purchasing them in this week, and we're going to be doing a check sort of thing where they give it to
you get the big check.
Yeah, exactly. In the next couple of weeks. So I'll send you photos and all that. When I said that I would do everything to set the right example for my kids, this is where this all comes from. Because me getting involved in their education is me trying to have a example for them to go off of on what's possible and what could be done. So whether it's being vulnerable in front of them, whether it's talking to them about what's going on, or showing them through my TEDx about like, hey, daddy's talking about the eating disorder and body dysmorphia, I can do that too. What I'm really trying to do is create this very, very, very large bubble where they know what is possible, what can be said yes to, instead of what I feel like a society where we're constantly told no.
Right. Or don't share that, or you'll be ridiculed if you share that, or it makes you less than if you share that. And it's, I love that.
It takes a lot of work on the parent side too. We have a tendency as human beings that if somebody else has a problem, we try to use what would make us feel better in order to figure out what would make them feel better.
Yeah, to fix their issue. Right.
They're not us.
Yep.
So what I try to talk to parents and people about is, and it's hard because it's kind of unwrapping our own process. We have to look at it from, okay, what's best for them? How can we ask questions that are not leading to the answer that we potentially are trying for?
Right.
And really make it accessible for them to tell them what they need and what they want, because we may have more experience as adults, but I'll be damned if our kids don't know what's actually going to help them.
Right.
And people just don't give kids enough credit. If you say, Brooklyn had a molar growing in, and she was in a lot of pain. So my wife was with her last night, and Brooklyn, who's not fully verbal, goes, tooth. Our kids know.
Right.
So let's give them the respect in allowing them to advocate for themselves. And that's what it is. And you're going to learn real quick.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but I love this. Yeah. I think it's, if you're allowed the opportunity in life to be with your children for a long time, I don't think there's any way you can't learn from them, right? Because I love what you're saying too. This is what I'm keying in on. And also, I will say, when you were talking about setting up the Manny Project, that almost got me. I definitely had to hold back some tears there. But you had to do so much introspection to learn what was making you feel the way you would feel and feelings then drive our actions sometimes. And those actions, whether good or bad, can dictate your life, right? And I love what you're saying, because it's like you did the work to understand yourself that then allows you to help other parents understand themselves to better understand their kids. And that's the thing. You're right. Like I think children have this innate ability to understand who they are, what they need at a fundamental level. And as you get older, people tell you what your priorities should be. They should tell you, hey, you need this job and you need this much money and you should have this title and you need this kind of car. And it's like, but do we need to? And so rarely in life do we, and I feel like I was forced to with my accident, is to look in the mirror and like, does that stuff matter? Like, did it matter to me? I know people are telling me it matters to them, but does it matter to me? And I think innately we know what's good for us. Sometimes there's just so much noise and things that have been programmed in us that kind of override our instinctual drive to take care of ourselves.
But
yeah,
and this is sort of going back to what we initially talked about. We do need that support system in place. And
true,
for me,
that too. Yeah. It's like a and both. Yeah.
So in addition to my wife, I've been very lucky. My sponsor, my biggest sponsor, her name is Future Kane. She is absolutely amazing. She's the one that talked me through the decolonization process. Like I met her years ago and she was like, Dan, if you're going to do this work, what are you prepared to lose? And I really had to think about it, because at the time she was talking about anti-racism and advocacy. And obviously I have part of it. We haven't gone into certain aspects of what I do, but that caused me to do a lot of that internal introspection. The other person, and this is actually, I said to you before we started, there was somebody I wanted to introduce you to. Here's who. Her name's Elaine Lynn Herring. She wrote a book called Unlearning Silence. She's one of my greatest inspirations. I don't read as much anymore, but I read her book, and what it's about is why we are trained in society to be silent and how we could get ourselves out of it. And she has inspired me so much, because we really are in these environments where it's easier to be silent than speak up. But when we speak up, we make greater impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll be introducing you. She's the one person I'm like, I have to.
I can't wait. I'm already inspired.
There's things I could talk to you about off camera that I can't talk to you about on camera. Sorry, everybody.
Okay, that's all good.
But
yeah.
Like,
stay tuned.
There are people that come into your life, and my speaker coach, Emma Washington, is another one, and Rena, that are like, they don't even necessarily understand why you view them the way that you do. Like, I don't think either of our wives will ever fully understand the extent, the value, the love, the respect, the admiration that we have for them.
Right.
Because intuitive, like, we don't feel it either. We both get compliments on a regular basis. As like, well,
maybe you do. Me, not that much.
I know you do. we don't always see that in ourselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this is my ADHD tangent.
No. It's just touching on a lot of different areas. And I think we have bounced around your life a lot.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, what I'm getting from you is that there was a purpose in you and you didn't always know how to get it out and you didn't even know which direction it would go. But as you kept moving towards to me, it feels like your values, even if it was values that you then discovered, opportunities have come your way and it's allowed you to be brave. It's allowed you to kind of step out, forget your uncomfortability, because I think that's where my mind goes. Like, I'm always fascinated by it. I was so uncomfortable getting out of the hospital and I felt hideous. I felt like a monster and I had lost limbs. And I was like, how do I ever speak to somebody again? And, and I don't know if people think this, but I'm sure there are some people who think, how does this guy go up on camera or speak on a mic to people and go to events or whatever? And it's like, for me, what I tell myself is that the mission and the message is more important than my comfortability.
That's it. That's what I've always said. Mission over sacrifice is why I do what I do. And it's not I have to consciously ask myself thing. It's this is what I do.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm meant to do. So I will, but it doesn't make it easy. And I always tell people this, like, having conversations about being a domestic violence survivor and sexual assault survivor, that's not something I like talking about. I don't like talk about my wife almost dying.
Right.
But
Yeah.
who else is doing it?
Yeah. I find myself asking, if not me, then who?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that sounds so grand. And it's not like, I was thinking about it today. I'm a big fan of Stoic philosophy. I talk about it a lot. And Ryan Holiday was talking about how he did a video at a cemetery. And he's like, nobody is going to remember these people. Nobody knows exactly what they did. They know the big highlights, was this account executive, had these kids, but I was thinking about this morning. I'm like, nobody's going to know. Maybe they'll know, hey, that's the guy that survived a plane crash or whatever, but and somewhat of that can sound morbid or depressing, but for me, it gives me peace because nobody's going to remember every little thing I did every week, but maybe they'll possibly remember a little bit of the good I tried to do. And that's worth it.
Yeah.
And that allows me the freedom to just go out and chase it. And it also allows me to be like, all the shame or embarrassment or nervousness I get talking about the things I talk about, it's like, yeah, but who cares? No one's going to remember you 100 years from now. So why don't you just try to do some good while you're here?
And that's the thing that I think I've always realized. It's hard in the moment because people like you and I, there can't be an expectation that we're going to just hit it off and suddenly become Gary V. Okay.
He's got some things I like, but it's not for everybody.
I've always had this idea that the bulk majority of the respect that I will get for the work I do will likely come after I'm gone. Because here's the thing. When your kids talk about you after you're gone, what people remember, as you just said, the advocacy work, the way that you went about things is going to be the first thing that they remember. And when those are the first words that come, that starts jogging people's minds of, well, do I do enough advocacy? Do I do enough conversations? And it gets that ball turning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important to me to get on these stages. And professional speaking, yes, you can make great money at professional speaking. I'm still considered an emerging speaker. I'm trying to get on more stages. But a lot of that, in addition to the financial, because that is a component of it, is I want there to be record of the things that I do, the things that I've said, not because of ego, but so that people remember that these things are important.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's something I think about a lot too. Especially in this day and age, it's like everybody's trying to jump on camera and share a lot of things. And I don't know if people will believe this or not. It's like I hate kind of putting myself on camera to talk about confidence or how I felt after my plane crash or whatever. But I have seen moments, I've gotten messages now where people do feel, they're like, hey, I appreciate you saying that and reaching out. And, I've seen some benefit from it. And it's like, all right, well, maybe I am meant to do this. And it's giving me more confidence and it's giving me more drive to keep doing it, even though it's not something, and I don't want to be an influencer. I just want to have great conversations and hopefully help people get through hard things.
Yeah.
Maybe try to not just accept every thought that they have, every negative thought. And I guess I want to ask you about that. It's like you've went through so many hard things. I'm sure you have had this negative self-talk. How have you gotten over that?
I don't.
But you're here and you're doing more amazing things. Like, what do you tell yourself when those negative thoughts pop up?
People make an assumption that negative self-talk goes away.
Right.
And I think part of this for me is not working and not bringing in financial, but I'm my own worst critic. After the TEDx, people were elated. And my first thought was, what could I have done better? What could I have changed?
I get that. Do you think that's a tie to ADHD or do you just think a personality thing?
I think it's a personality. It could be tied to ADHD. It could be tied to getting bullied and always feeling the need to be perfect so that I'm not giving people a reason. And I've never been satisfied with what I've done. And I, like you, have done a whole bunch of different interviews. I've been asked to do things that took real resolve. And there's not a day that goes by that I could tell you I'm fully happy. I'm fully confident in what I've done or what I'm doing. I think that it's just the motivation and the fact that I know I can't stop that gets me through. But every ounce of me is tired,
Mm.
mentally, physically, emotionally. I still suffer from depression, anxiety every morning, every second of my day. I still look in the mirror and hate how I look. So I don't have great advice for people in talking about how to get over. I think at the end of the day, you just have to have the motivation and knowing your why to keep going. Because when
Mm.
all else fails, I look at my children
Right.
and that's all I need. I look at my wife, that's all I need.
Wow.
The negative thoughts will still be there. The anxiety will still be there. I do not get a break. I do not get a rest. I do not get enough breaths.
Mhm.
I do not get enough sleep. But I have my kids and I have my wife. And honestly, that's enough for me.
That's amazing. I think one, thank you for sharing that. And it's incredible that, you get up every day, you're here, you're still actively pushing to help other people. I kind of wish I just asked you the questions because really what happens is I feel like you answered the last two questions I have for you, which I ask everybody, but I'm going to ask it just in case you can
Okay,
think of
go
something
ahead.
else. Why not? Let's roll the dice and
Well,
see if something comes up.
before you get to that, I just
Yeah.
want to acknowledge again that nothing gets done independently. You have a huge staff that's working hard. But
Mm.
before we get to those last two questions, you
Sure.
have people in the studio today for a very special reason. Can you touch
Oh,
on that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Through the prosthetic company that supports me and that I get to use this amazing equipment called Naked Prosthetics, larger company, Oser. Yeah, they're in here basically to film me through the weekend, living life, seeing how I work with a prosthetic, and hopefully getting to share more of my mission, like we talked about today, of overcoming adversity, challenging negative thoughts, and trying to live the best, most fulfilling life with the time we have left.
And that's amazing. And it's to your
Thank you.
credit. And by the way, if there's any sponsors out there that are looking for a great individual to sponsor Sick Burn Podcast,
Oh,
get in touch with
thanks.
Thomas.
I appreciate that. Yeah. The financial component, to be honest, is like, it's not figured out yet. But as I still am able to do this, I want to keep driving it. And I think to your point, for me, it's more about the mission. As long as I can keep doing this and, we got a roof over our head and my family still has food on the table. It's like, I want to keep driving this and hopefully help as many people as I can.
Yes,
Just like you.
but there's a cost to it. And something that was very difficult for me, and I made this mistake, right? When I was going through I was getting 1,000 followers per week on social media, and I
Wow.
built out a 12,000 person private community and 19,000 subscriber newsletter. The entire time
Wow.
I thought I had to be altruistic. And because of that, when I fell on hard times, I didn't have the infrastructure set up in
Mm.
order to have that backing that I needed to survive. So, yes,
Mhm.
there is the mission, but let's just break the fourth wall and say there is a financial component. I do
Definitely.
I want to be able to take my kids on vacations. I want to be able to provide for them.
Mhm.
And in the same vein, it costs money to put on something like this.
Yeah.
You want to we deserve, and this is a hard thing to say, we deserve to be compensated. So when I talk about like shouting out sponsors for you, it's because wouldn't it be great for you to be able to take stages and get paid a good amount of money to do it and have people that are in bond with you doing the same work that can afford to like really help
Yeah.
build this up. So, I'm not trying to be coy. I'm not trying to be, but like this man deserves it.
No.
So let's make it happen for him.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's way too kind. You're right. There has to, and there is, it's something actively being worked on. There has to be a financial component because money isn't endless, and there's a lot of people that work on this, and I'm lucky to get to work with, but they need to be compensated, and I'm working on that. But
Now-
to say that I deserve something though is so hard for me to
Oh, I know.
receive.
I know, but it's coming
Yeah.
from somebody it's equally as hard to receive. This is why I do this,
Mm.
because I know you won't. And by the way, for the
Thanks.
prosthetic company, based on the first thing that Thomas said, maybe a prosthetic penis is in the future.
No, I'm happy with what I got. Yeah, I do got my son at home, so it works just fine.
You went there. This is not my fault.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Okay, so what are the last two questions?
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for all of that.
Sorry, Christina.
Yeah, sorry, Christina. Sorry, babe. This got embarrassing. But you did kind of answer it, but I have to ask it because it's just the last two questions. And the question is this: what currently is giving you the most amount of peace?
Knowing that I can go to sleep, understanding that I've fought as hard as I can every moment of every day for my girls.
It's a pretty incredible answer. Yeah.
That's pretty much the only thing that gives me peace.
Wow.
I also have to give myself credit where it's difficult to. The fact that I was able to do a TEDx about eating disorder, body dysmorphia as a man, the reception that I've gotten, and it's not public yet. They're still in the editing phase. But it's like one of the first times in my life where I think to myself, hey, like this could really make a difference for a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh man, I will do it for you. I'm going to give you so much credit. That's so personal. And we already talked about it. It's so taboo for men. So to go out there, step into bravery, to step outside of your own insecurities and to talk about such a hard topic. It's hard for anybody. It's hard for men and women, but men especially, it's just not something we would ever talk about with people. So I give you so much credit, man. That is incredible. And also like, I think it was a lifelong goal for you, but how many people get to speak at TED? That's an incredible achievement.
So I've been speaking, my mother's a kindergarten teacher, and I would go into her class starting when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'd read to her kids. And that's how I learned cadence. That's how I learned tone. So I was always pretty decent at speaking. My background's in media. Like I've worked in journalism, radio, TV, the whole 9 yards. So speaking was always there for me. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I even acknowledged TEDx. And it was because of social media. And when I got involved with my coach, Evan Washington, it was like one of those things, hey, this could really help me get to the next step as a professional speaker. So let's do it. But from a speaking perspective, I wanted to give up on the TEDx journey so many times because there's so many applications that you send in and it's hard. Like TEDx is not easy because they have a very specific lane they want you to stick in. And MM would not let me give up. And I've said this a couple times, but after it was done, I sent her an email. And this is like, I think you and I think the same way. So you'll get this. I said, look, I'm about to do all these things. I have a book coming out. I want you behind me always. So you figure out a percentage. I want you on retainer. You're not getting rid of me. We're not done. You are my coach from now until the end of time. And that's, I think when you go through so much, you learn, you get rejected by a lot of people. A lot of people wind up leaving your life. So when you find like 2 or 3 people that you absolutely adore to the ends of the earth, that you absolutely love, you are loyal to them to a point where they don't even understand it.
Yeah, you hold on.
Yeah.
You're like, you have an invisible handcuff on them.
And she always says to me, she says, thank you for speaking my name in rooms that I am not present. Well, of course. Look what you did for me.
Yep. I do get that so much.
Okay, what's the second question?
All right. Well, I love that answer. And yeah, you're right. I can totally relate to that.
I knew you would.
Yeah, exactly. You know me well. All right. So the second question, and it's going to be interesting because you talked about your daughters. So I'm wondering if you're going to be able to translate this in a different way. But the second question is this. For anybody else out there who's listening or going through their hardest time, their darkest moment right now, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I'll talk through my thought process on this because I hate being cliche.
Yeah.
And you could say you're not alone. Okay, but I feel alone.
Right.
Here's what I'll go with. There's a tendency in society to disengage or devalue our own circumstances. Oh, there's somebody else in the world going through something worse. Oh, somebody, it doesn't matter. It's just me. No, I don't care that somebody else may be going through something quote unquote worse. we each have to take our own journey. We each have our value and we deserve to feel what we're feeling. So my advice is, please do not devalue yourself and your circumstance. Feel confident, or at least heard in knowing that what you're going through is very, very visceral, is very, very real, and nobody can tell you anything different. And yeah, you're seen.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I could go to that it doesn't seem cliche, because we do put ourselves down. Look how often our go-to is, oh, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. No.
Yeah, and there's a dismissing aspect to it, but I love it. It's something that I'm going to be talking a lot about more, I think, in future episodes, which is acceptance. Part of that is accepting what is. And yeah, and if you devalue something, you are naturally not accepting it.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. I think that's beautiful advice, man.
And that elongates the time it's going to take to I don't even like to say overcome,
right?
But to get through it,
to move through. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, yeah, and your length of, if it was a clogged pipe, the clog in there, it varies for everybody, right? In terms of like the width and how deep and all that, but you have to move through what you have to move through, and and it differs for everybody.
And the last thing, if I can, that I'll say,
Please.
and I think you and I are both an example of what I'm about to say, is if you're listening, we always talk about overcoming things. We need to get away from thinking that we constantly have to overcome hurdles, that we constantly have to conquer demons.
Right.
What we really have to start thinking about is, if it's a situation where, like for me, the eating disorder, body dysmorphia, anxiety, depression, for you, it may be the physicality. Instead of thinking, how do I overcome this? How can I work this in a positive way to who I am, so that I can put that spin on it, so that during my darkest of days, I'm not thinking about how hard this is. Instead, I'm thinking about, okay, well, this may be hard, but this is how I could use it to make it better.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. This is how it's making me better, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Dan, those are incredible answers. I appreciate it so, so much. You are incredible. This conversation is so eye-opening for me. It's very, it's just like it allows me to kind of accept some of my thought process and feelings about myself. So I really, really appreciate you for that. Where can everybody find you? Where can they support you? The book, the TED Talk, all the above.
So the TED Talk will be out soon. I am part of a speaker bureau, the Gravity Speaker Bureau. You can find me on LinkedIn. We'll have all the information in the episode.
Oh yeah, definitely in the show notes.
Yeah, in the show notes. I'm everywhere. Like it's kind of weird. I'm on like 15 or 20 different things. I'm redoing my YouTube channel for like just to be a good speaker, because we're in San Diego. If you are interested in sponsoring a swing, if you are interested in sponsoring something, if you need help with special education, please feel free to reach out to me. I am a resource for parents. Sometimes we don't know all the time we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So if I can be a resource for anyone, please let me know. And yeah, I'm accessible, and I'm open for, you need somebody to do a job. If you need somebody to speak, hey, I'm here. Right. I'm not charging Thomas, but I will charge you if you're okay with it.
Yeah, definitely. And you would be a valuable asset anywhere. Thank you so much. I want to bring it in. Let's wrap this bad boy up. All right, man.
Dad said so many incredible things that I haven't stopped thinking about. You can feel when someone genuinely cares about the people they're speaking for. That's one of the biggest takeaways for me. Dan, thank you for your time, your wisdom, and being willing to go to some honest and vulnerable places. It means everything to me. If this episode hit home for you, like, share, and subscribe. Drop your biggest takeaways in the comments, and I'd love to know what hit home for you. So take care of yourself, if you can, someone else, and keep exploring the bright side to life's darkest moments. Aloha.